Hello, this is Shiny Noctales, and tonight rather this early morning, since I slept for most of the afternoon, I was really tired, as it were, after I finished hiking, and I kind of woke up, you know, late in the evening, as it were, but I am awake now, and I figured I would do a video, really a video that I was kind of thinking in my mind for a wee while now, and I think it'd be good to kind of share my experiences with you know just with some individuals who'd like to hear, and just kind of give you guys my kind of take on the experiences I've had. Um, and I want to preface this, yeah, I'm pronouncing that right. Preface this by saying that most of these experiences I've had have been in America, by the way, not in the Celtic Isles, at least not from people I've spoken from there, fortunately. And there's a very good reason why to start. Um, and I think it has to do more so just with culture, more so than anything else, really. Um, and amongst other things, but nonetheless, I think this would be good to share. And so, for me, when I speak about my Celtic heart, because a lot of people they get confused when I speak about it because they think that being Celtic has to do with ethnicity, or even more so these terms that are thrown like white or having blonde or even red hair, which is quite silly because there are many Irish out there that have dark hair, as well as the Welsh and the Scottish and you know a lot of other Celtic nations in Europe like Spain and Germany and I mean southern Germany and France and even northern Italy because there were Celtic tribes there too. Um, so uh, in that respect, they are have that Celtic ancestry as well. But it really doesn't have to do more so with ancestry per se, because I think people tend to twist the concept of being Celtic. A lot of neo-Nazi groups seem to have tried to do that, or supremacist groups, which is quite a shame. A lot of the Scandinavians are actually trying to fight against that now as we speak. But I think it's really important to clear this up because I think a lot of people, especially in America, I think in the Isles, I think they understand what it really means to be Celtic, just like I did in my past life. Uh, because my friends and I, my Celtic friends and I, in my past life, regardless of skin color or hair color, we would accept one another for the good in our hearts, despite mistakes made. And I really do believe that. I believe that, there were a certain number of us that did that, and that still do in the present day. And I think that, you know, even though Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, I'm sure I've seen, they still face problems with racism and prejudice, on their own, on the Isles. I think that's why, they get really upset with the Americans, when they say, why is that black or black Irish or when I mean black, because even that term is really shouldn't really be used anymore per se, because saying that a person that's black Irish has dark hair is an anomaly is just kind of odd to me, to be honest. Because the Morrigan, the Raven spiritual mother Morrigan, one of the prominent goddesses of Ireland, is often seen with dark hair. She's sometimes also seen with red hair as well, but oftentimes she's seen with dark hair. So that's really uh, you know, I mean, she was there long before the Spanish Armada, so you know, it's quite an unfounded term in a way. But nonetheless, we will continue this discussion, and so yeah, nonetheless, there were some Americans that were, that had Irish ancestry that were saying, why is this African person, I was born and raised in Ireland, why is he considered more Irish than I? And one of the Irish men or women back in the aisle, said, what makes you Irish isn't about birth certificates or blood, it's who you are. And that's what I believe in, I believe in that as well. But many seem to struggle to understand that. But if you believe in the transmigration of the soul, and that the soul is something that is not necessarily just this body or just this lifetime, that it could have had, an experience in Eire or in Ireland, one lifetime, and, have been born in another country, this lifetime yet still have the same, Celtic heart deep down, then you're still Celtic. Now I don't use the term, I'm Irish or I'm Scottish or I'm Welsh because for me, I like using the term Celtic more because it's more inclusive, because it's something that we all, a lot of like that the tribes share, or at least that's what I felt like our tribes shared in my past life. And because there's unity there when we can see what we share. And the Celtic people were, again, as I said before, not only in the Isles, but also in much of mainland Europe. Even they allegedly said that some tribes were found as far east as Turkey, which I thought was pretty interesting. But yeah, no, I think that in America, or when I mean America, I mean, well, the US, but even I don't want to say South America to an extent, but I'll at least say the US. I feel like, and maybe even Canada, there is a huge problem with identity in general. There is even more so, definitely more so than Ireland and even Scotland and Wales in a way, because I think the problem here is that, you'd think that a place such as the United States that supports, religious freedom and diversity and things like that, you think it wouldn't be as much of a problem per se. But I think what's happened is people here over the last couple of centuries probably have tried to attach, or I'm going to try to see how to use another term, define themselves for their how they look solely rather than who they are. And even when the Irish, came here in the 1850s, they said no dogs, no blacks, no Irish. And I think, that's why I really don't like using the term quote unquote white because it really has no bearing really. It's really more so like um, it just doesn't really have a solid foundation. And so that's something, we have to, recognize too. Recognize just really, is this something that is really needed? And it really isn't. It isn't, because, think about all the other cultures that aren't quote unquote white, as it were. Imagine if there was no tea, no tiki masala. It's a national English dish, according to one of my English friends in England. And there was no, uh, you know, potatoes or corn. That's native to the Americas. Imagine if there was none of that, or if cultures didn't accept that because it came from non-white quote unquote sources. It just we'd all still be eating cabbage and and meat, if you're lucky, and bread and or certain kind of bread and meat, and that's fine and dandy. But I think we're better off with the diversity of foods that we have today. I really do believe so, and also diversity of perspectives in its own merits. But yeah, I think that that's something that individuals have to recognize. And even when I've heard people that have been of African ancestry or sub-Saharan African, even when I hear uh, you know those kind of people, speak in Britain or in England, I don't really think, oh, they're black. I think, oh, they're English or oh, they're British. I don't really think too much more of it. And I'm not sure how the English themselves, see it in England. I know my dad's wife, said when she went there in the 70s, there were a lot of mixed couples, as it were, over there. Um, and yeah, no, I also know that in Scotland, I know there have been, some, people that were had African ancestry, sub-Saharan African ancestry that were called, these slurs like even monkeys, as it were, which is very sad. It's very sad. And I know most likely most Scottish people, do not support that. I really do. Um, and I actually watched a YouTuber called Bruce Fumi, and his father actually was an African Ghanaian from Ghana, and then his mother was Scottish, even though his grandmother was English, surprisingly enough. Um, but yeah, no, he has shared his experiences, and I'm sure he's had his own battles, and um, but I see him as Celtic like anyone else because of his heart, or Scottish, because it doesn't really matter at the end of the day what you look like per se. It's really who you are in the heart, and that's what I see in Bruce. I've loved watching his videos. He does great tours of the history of Scotland, and if anyone told him he wasn't Scottish, he'd probably just just laugh at them. A good Scottish laugh. Yeah, I think he'd do that. It's quite funny. Um, but yeah, no, I think it really is silly. There's just these buffoons out there, and I'll call them buffoons because that's what they are. That really just don't really understand, what it really means to have a Celtic heart. But I don't even want to say it's just buffoonery. It's a lot of times it's just ignorance or people just don't fully understand really. Which is a shame. It is, but that's what we have to face. And for me, some people when they heard me speak, one person thought I had blonde hair and I was 6 feet tall. And maybe in one lifetime, I did have blonde hair and I was 6 feet tall, but I don't really attach that to me being Celtic. Like I don't say, oh, I was just Celtic or I was just Irish in this past life because I had blonde hair, or I might have had blue or green eyes. That doesn't really make sense to me. That's just one form of a Celtic person because Celtic people were very diverse. You had dark hair, you had blonde hair, red hair, brown hair, all different eye colors and skin tones. So to say that, oh, this person is only Celtic or Irish when he has red or blonde hair, it really makes no sense. I mean, there are people allegedly as far east as in Asia that can have red hair as well. And I think people just really don't understand that they're their ethnicity or their looks doesn't really necessarily fully define who they are at the core. Now, with that being said, this lifetime, I actually recently uh, received a DNA test back, and it was really interesting. I got a lot of interesting kind of results because my family of this lifetime, sometimes questioned me for my Celtic heart. Um, because to them, being Celtic was just really either being Irish or maybe even Scottish or Welsh if if they know Wales is a country. Because not everyone does, unfortunately. But good thing the Welsh are speaking up about it. But yeah, it's something that that people have to recognize because I recently did some history of Spain or the Iberian Peninsula, like Spain, Portugal, because that's where some of my ancestors came from this lifetime, or also from the Canary Islands, which is also interesting in its own merit. But there were Celtic tribes in much of the Iberian Peninsula, and even the Galicians in northern Spain still today still celebrate their Celtic culture. They actually played the gaita, which could have been the predecessor of the Scottish bagpipe. And I've even heard some alleged rumors about the Scottish people may potentially being descendants of a Celtic Spanish tribe. And I wouldn't be too surprised about that because in Irish mythology, in the Book of Invasions, the Milesians actually were these northern Celtic Spaniards that actually went to the Celtic Isles. And a lot of people that we know today on the Isles, part of their ancestry were from these northern Spanish. So, that's interesting to note. And yeah, so I had part of that. And I also had a fair bit of Native American ancestry from South America, and I do what I can to respect the first people because I felt like this lifetime I was born off of Eire or off of Ireland for a reason, and I don't take it for granted that the place I'm living in now is really a refuge or really just a place of solace for place to allow me to heal really. And so I try to do what I can to respect the first people because number one, you know, our lands were also invaded in the past as well, so I can resonate with them in that respect. Uh, you know, just with the Romans or the British or other armies and things like that, Anglo-Saxons, you name it. Um, and and the other thing too is the Choctaw people, helped the Irish or my brethren back on the Isle during the potato famine. Even those hundreds of years after my past life, they helped them. And it was a beautiful thing. And the Irish honor them on the Isle to this day, and so I do what I can to honor them as well, because they helped my people, and I think it's a good thing to do. And I think more Americans, I think, in America could really benefit from doing that as well. Even though I know the Pope recently went to Canada and apologized what had happened to a lot of the natives up there, which I believe was good for him to do, and hopefully in time, the wounds of this land will also be healed, just like Neira. Um, so yeah, so I got that, and then I also got a fair bit of English, actually, 11.2%. So, regarding that, my father, actually, his grandmother, Lita, her last name was Cleves, and they were allegedly from a German village in Germany called Cleves. But maybe what had happened is maybe they were an English family that had left England and then migrated to Germany for economic prosperity or to like And so, because when I got my DNA results, I didn't get German. I got English, but I also got Scandinavian as well, a wee bit. And my dad's first name is Sigifredo, which in in German it's Siegfried, and then in Norse it's Sigurd. So and then I also did a little bit of research on my last name, Vivas, and that actually comes from a place in Wiltshire in southwest England, and basically it's of Norman origin. So it was essentially uh, Vikings that had gone to France and had intermingled with the Gallic, Romano, French or Celts there, as it were. So that was interesting to read about indeed. Um, and then other than that, I also got 12% North African, and so that was also interesting as well. Because North Africa, like Morocco, Algeria, Egypt, those kind of places, are right near Spain, so it's not too surprising that I got that either. And I actually can see now how the North African culture and the culture in Spain, how there was a lot of back and forth and cultural exchange as it were. And I think some of it was beneficial. I mean, the Moroccans actually have some beautiful ways of eating and beautiful dishes, and they seem to be a fairly friendly people. At least some of those that I've met or I've seen online in YouTube videos. But I know there is a lot of history there between North Africa and Spain, and hopefully in time that will be healed. Uh, but yeah, no. So I learned about that as well. I also got a fair bit of Italian too. So I actually did go to Rome and Venice, or no, Florence. Yeah, that's what it was. A few years ago. Italy is a very interesting country, and most of them, fortunately, aren't like the Roman invaders that that were in the past, and which is a good thing. And yeah, they were pretty pleasant to me. You know, they are exceptional when it comes to their culinary cuisine, like whether it comes to their meats or cheeses or pasta, a lot of things, it's actually quite delicious and a very beautiful country. Even though I know they are facing their own issues with economics and really just trying to balance things out, as it were. I got a scarf from there that I still use to this day, and it's kept me warm in the winter. It really has. Um, and then I also got a wee bit of Greek or Greece, South Italian or Greece. And then I've always thought Greek mythology and the foods, the food there was always interesting. Fun fact, a lot of the Greeks, and I actually I watched this YouTuber called Walter's World, and he travels to all these different countries and whatnot. And his wife, her name is Jocelyn, and Jocelyn, I imagine she probably has some Greek ancestry there or connects with it. But she was saying, a lot of the Greeks, they don't like the hero to be called gyros. They like them to be called heroes. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that right. But that's what I heard. So that's interesting enough. Um, yeah. So and then last but not least, I got a wee bit of Nigerian. A very small amount, but I got a wee bit, and a lot of my friends that are African American or connect with that culture, and sometimes they've said, you got a wee bit of us, and yeah. Um, and they've always been really good friends in a way, and I didn't really ever see them differently than anyone else. And Actually, my mom had a good friend named Maxie, and he had a beautiful wife named Brenda, red hair, and very beautiful. Um, and they, they were always nice to me, and I could remember when Maxie would make cornbread, lima beans, and mac and cheese, and just a lot of really good stuff. And I always remember that with fond memories. He had a good heart indeed. Even though I sometimes try to remind him, when he's struggling about, the love that Brenda shared with him. Uh, and but yeah, no, it's very interesting. But yeah, no, it's yeah, we all it's interesting when you look at all these cultures, DNA even just of all these different places because even if you don't fully connect with the culture, you can still learn about it and see what they do and I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think as a Celtic heart, I really think that it's good to expand, your heart like a rainbow, really, and really learn about all these different kinds of people. Even a Scottish lady. Well, she's Australian, but she has Scottish ancestry. She would say that, or I guess she connected with it strongly enough. Um, she told me that, that her and I were essentially connected. And I didn't really understand what she meant at first when she said that. And, she said, no, like you do remember the Celtic language, you just don't know it yet. She shouted it, by the way. I'm surprised no one else in the room said anything. But, yeah, I've since taken the time to learn more about Scotland, and I learned at one point, Eire or Ireland and Scotland were kind of considered the same in some ways, or they were both kind of part of Eire. So at least from what I've read. So, but yeah, it was just very interesting to hear about that, indeed. And so yeah, I know I've gone on a wee bit of a tangent. I usually do that when I speak. But yeah, so I uh, I think that here in America, because I really haven't met anyone from the Isles that have really said, "Oh, you're not Celtic because you look like this," or "Oh, no, I've never heard that." Yeah, no. I mean, there's been someone that says, "Oh, you look a wee bit darker than average," but other than that, or no, she didn't say that. She said, "You look a wee bit tan." Yeah, maybe that's the proper term. Don't want to misconstrue what she said. But yeah, no, it's funny really because when my dad came up here to Idaho, he first thing that were first words that came out of his mouth, and he wasn't trying to be prejudiced, is that you look white now. White as in I guess my skin tone had to whiten up or brighten up because here we have long winters and things like that, so you don't get as much sunlight. And I told him, well, I mean, when you live in a colder climate, I mean that can happen at times. Um, but because I used to live in Florida and down there, you really do get a tan. But up here, since the weather is cooler, your skin tone can change. But I'm still, the same. I still have the same Celtic heart regardless. Even though, it has been growing for the better, fortunately, which I'm glad. But I really do love the four seasons, and a lot of people, even my friends up here, think I'm crazy when I walk in the forest when it's 20 degrees Fahrenheit or in a foot of snow or negative 6.67 degrees Celsius for those, that use Celsius. And yeah, but no, for the most part, I have a fair amount of friends, here that I've met in Idaho, Um, and you know, some of them, you know, have still been long-lasting friends. And even though, you know, sometimes I wish I could hang out more with them. I know, you know, at times they're busy and have their own things going on, which is fine. But yeah, no, I think that I'm gonna try to see how I can break this down. So here in North Idaho, I think it's not really so much a problem with with a lot of the folks here being of one ethnicity, because I really don't think that's the main problem because you know, you could say that about Eire, Scotland, and Wales, but I don't really think they have as much issues over there. So I don't really think it really has to do with that. I think it has to do really with the education and people just not being educated or not knowing that different kinds of people are out there. Or even people that's you know, because I've even been asked here, you know, where are you from? Because they didn't even think I was from America. You know, they thought I might have been from Europe or somewhere. Um, and I just tell them, you know, I have a Celtic heart and things like that, and I try to leave it at that. You know, because I know a fair amount of the Irish, you know, allegedly they get a fair amount of Irish Americans going to Ireland saying, "Yeah, well, I'm Irish, I'm this, I got all these clans," and you know, and talking in a southern accent, and you know, it's not a bad thing, by the way, but you know, and then they're just like, they're like, here we go again. But no, I just kind of laugh. It's silly. But yeah, no, I've actually had a fair amount of people from the Isles that I've spoken to online that, you know, do call me brethren or do say we have a connection, and it's beautiful, it's comforting because in my past life, you know, I really did struggle with my Irish family in Donegal, but because a lot back then most people were Catholic, and if you weren't Catholic, you know, they had issues with you. But you know, since then I've forgiven those ancestors, you know, that you know said, you know, we're sorry that we pushed those views on you too far. Because I'm a pagan, by the way, a Celtic pagan, and but you know, we just heal in time. You know, and things happen. We all make mistakes, as it were. We just have to try to do what we can to see the good still in others and even in ourselves. But yeah, no, I've met some people here that have said terms like uh, though of course this was you know years ago, and I looked a little bit different back then too. But you know, there's this one time where one of my friends, you know, said something about me being Indian, and by the way, I don't have any Indian DNA allegedly in my DNA, but even if I did, you know, uh, I don't think it really matters because well, first off, I love Indian food. I think it's one of the best foods I've ever had, and a lot of Indian people, because I had a fair bit of professors when I was going for my degree in computer science at the University of North Florida that were Indian, and I didn't see them any differently, really. You know, you know, I thought they were very educated, very intelligent. Um, and it was just another culture, and I didn't think too much of it. Uh, and I don't think it's so much the problem with being called Indian, because I think, you know, being Indian can be a beautiful thing. By the way, not Native American. I think it's better for people probably to, you know, distinguish between both of them because, you know, Native Americans aren't Indians and Indians aren't Native Americans. Uh, but nonetheless, yeah, I know he said that and in a negative connotation. I think that was the big problem, you know, because it's sometimes how you say things that's important to recognize as well. And one of my friends, you know, said, you know, so what? You know, so what if he's that? And then he just kind of backed off. But it's kind of a shame, you know. But you know, I've learned to forgive him because he's a good friend deep down. And, one day he was crying to me and just saying, Jem, my best friend, I really miss talking to you. And I think he has a good heart. And sometimes people just make mistakes, and we just have to acknowledge that and try to, heal with them. And yeah, and even, one of my deep connections, she one time said that as well when we were, at an Airbnb together. And she probably didn't really realize how much it affected me with her saying that, even though I don't think she was trying to be mean about it. So it was a little bit different, but still, I think that it's important to really respect people for how they want to be seen, or for who they really are deep down. And I think the problem is that people sometimes they just look at a face or look at how someone looks, and then they'll just make assumptions on that person. But again, like, and I know the Scandinavians, speak about this a lot. A person could look similar to a Scandinavian, and they could live in Spain. And would you say that that Spanish person is a Scandinavian? As far as like, connecting with the culture and things like that. Um, so yeah, that's something you have to think about. But yeah, no, nonetheless, I do what I can to see the good in others and in myself. And you know, my deep connection with Catherine, I know sometimes she, would really she would really like almost like, especially after our relationship, physically parted for a while. I felt like she really beat herself up, for quite some time, regarding what happened between us. But I still see the good in her because, she shared me love, in a deeper way than a lot of people have. Whether it was, having food prepared on the table unannounced, which was very beautiful, or just even just checking up on me, is a very beautiful thing for her to do. And she's still a very beautiful woman to me, and I will always believe that. But the reason why I got into the you really understanding about trans rights and things like that is because, she did have a transition from one gender to the other. But I always saw her for her heart, and I always saw her as a woman. So it never really crossed my mind. In my past life, she was my wife in Eira, and and that's probably why I didn't really have too much of an issue. But I think the reason why it was tough to let her go at first and love her freely was because, in Ireland, when you marry, at least, well, when Christianity came in, I'll say that, and then the ring system came in, you kind of married for life, and um, I've learned how to love freely and to understand that the love is not in the ring, but it's really in the friendship and the care, shared. And I think she understood that as well, over time, which I think is a good thing. And because I think, at the end of the day, what you really have there that's important is the friendship, and I think that's important to recognize. And but other than that, I think that um, you know, I'm gonna try to see how I can break this down. Um, Let me see here. I'm gonna try to find the right words for it. I think people They really just like even Americans, when they go to Ireland, there are actually some Irish that have very dark hair, very jet black eyebrows, and you know, tan or darker skin. And I th and they have 100% Irish DNA. And so I really just think that people really just I guess don't know. And maybe some of that is also willful partially as well. And I think that's something that really needs to be addressed in time. But yeah, no, it can be an uphill battle at times, but just like, climbing up a steep mountain or, a forest or things like that. It's an important thing to do, because, as I tell people, because I've been debating whether or not, I want to still live in North Idaho or potentially move elsewhere. I tell myself, just because I live in a place, akin to there being, a lot of Irish Catholics and I'm the only Celtic pagan, it doesn't mean I have to be any different to fit in with those Irish Catholics. I mean, in my past life, I stood up for Kath and I because I loved her, and I still do freely. And I also felt that it was important to speak up for those pagan values because it's really connected to the land. And just like how I did it back then, I'm still, doing it now, where instead of it being Catholics, it's more so far right evangelicals. But it happens, and you just have to stand up and be strong and know that even if you will face this kind of opposition at times, it's important to stand up for your beliefs. I really do believe that. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna try to see what else I can think of. Roll. But yeah, no, for the most part, a fair amount of people here are just fine. They have good hearts and like anywhere else. And I know sometimes people say North Idaho is one of the most racist places you can be in America. But I don't know if I really believe that. Because most of the people here are, again, just fine. But again, you will have those individuals out there that, for better or for worse, and this is anywhere really, that have that kind of mentality. And even in my family this lifetime, they really struggled with me being Celtic or having a Celtic heart rather, uh, because I had to tell them, just being Spanish isn't just being or being, you know, Latin is not just is not just Native American tribes from South America and Spain. It's really so much more than that, and so even that there, it was really tough. Like they didn't even know that my dad's first name, was Germanic, was from a Germanic and Norse origin, or about they're surprised when I got a wee bit of English and Scandinavian ancestry. And I'm sure even Greek to an extent, and maybe even Italian. Um, so yeah, that's something that I think all cultures all around the earth, regardless of how you look like, they have the same issue. Like I know even in Japan, there's a big problem with even with people that have, for example, red hair, fair skin. They go to Japan and people were giving them looks, and this one lady, was ran into by a Japanese lady because, she just couldn't believe she had red hair. So it really is quite silly. It is, and even in Africa, I've heard there have been times where there was this tribe that, had never seen a fair-skinned person before, so when they saw them, they thought they were a ghost and things like that. And yeah, I think that what happens is you have to be careful with what is known as I don't want to call it unnecessary, intolerant tribalism, but I think what happens is people they get into their own groups and they really struggle getting out of them or reaching out and connecting with other groups of people. And for me, having a Celtic heart, I have to tell people that it's not really about skin color or hair color because, back then and my past life, I felt like, I had a lot of Celtic friends that had different hair colors, different skin tones, and all that. But we could all see the good in our hearts, despite mistakes made, at least the ones I made friends with. So I think this thing about only hanging out with someone because they look a certain way, it really is unfounded. It's really not necessary. I feel like you could learn so much more from listening to a different perspective, or even you know, I think I was telling these Christian evangelicals, as it were, that wouldn't it be interesting to have a group of 8 to 10 different spiritual leaders, whether Hindu or Islam or Judaism or Christian as well, or Celtic pagan or Celtic Norse pagan or I'm gonna try to rephrase that or Norse heathen and Celtic pagan or Shinto or just all these different spiritual paths. Wouldn't it be interesting to hear what they all have to say instead of just always saying, oh, like my way is the only way, which I really think is quite arrogant at times. And I've spoken with these kinds of people that are like that, and I think we have to really be careful, about that mindset. Um, but yeah, I think that it's important to really listen, and also to speak up when needed. Whether it's for trans rights, because I have a lot of friends that were trans and still are, so that really faced domestic abuse or verbal abuse from particularly from their family, which is a shame. And I just hope in time that can heal, so they won't really have to face that anymore in time. But yeah, it's a story, it's a journey, it's a path, and you hope in time that people will, even if they themselves, may struggle seeing things from a deeper level or from a more informed perspective. Like even though their understanding might be a wee bit shallow at times, you can at least still help them come to that understanding from your own hearts and from your own perspective. And hopefully in time they can see that. They can see that. And because we all live on this earth together, we all have our journey to take, and I think if people could learn to just really sit there and also see what they have in common, I think that could help a lot. But anywho, guys, I know I went off on a wee bit of a this tangent there, as it were, or rather, or kind of chatted for a wee bit. But hope you guys all enjoyed. Hope you guys found the video interesting. And if you have any things you'd like to share, as long as you're not unnecessarily trolling, let me know, and I'll see what I can to see what I can to respond to some of those messages. Hopefully being well-meaning, as it were. Anywho, I hope you guys take care.